Was DEI a failure by Front Page Channel? I have no idea which channel is that. Let's watch it.
And some executive orders, they were very important.
The
Some
largest
executive
companies in
orders,
America
very
are dismantling
important.
something they spent billions of dollars building, and they are doing it faster than almost anyone predicted. In January 2025, the President of the United States signed executive orders that erased 60 years of federal diversity policy inside 48 hours.
My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense, and these are policies that were absolute nonsense.
Agencies had until January 22nd
I like how he emphasizes like 2 times that it's nonsense.
to close their DEI offices. Staff were laid off by the end of the month. Government websites went dark. Entire departments that had taken years to construct disappeared in days.
Several federal departments removed their DEI-focused web pages after President Donald Trump signed a sweeping executive order dismantling the federal government's diversity and inclusion programs.
By February 2026, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, sent warning letters directly to Fortune 500 CEOs, board chairs, and general counsel, threatening potential federal litigation against companies that continued running certain DEI programs.
Federal employees are receiving emails warning that they could face repercussions if they do not snitch on their coworkers who work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility positions.
The federal government's own civil rights attorney was now threatening to sue corporations for civil rights programs
It's what they are
corporations
saying.
had spent 5 years building in response to civil rights pressure. The Human Rights Campaign maintains a
Caleb is
corporate
getting
equality
radicalized
index,
in
a
real time.
benchmark that companies spent years lobbying to appear on. In 2025, 377 Fortune 500 companies participated in it. By 2026, that number had collapsed to 131, a 65% decline in a single calendar year. Between January 2023 and May of 2025, Fortune 100 companies reduced references to DEI in their official corporate communications by 98%. Companies that spent millions crafting DEI mission statements scrubbed those words from their website with the same speed they had used to put them there in the first place. More than 2,600 jobs with diversity or DEI in their titles were eliminated in a 2-year period. The career path that corporate recruiters were
That's
once
nice.
calling the hottest in America in 2021 had become, in NPR's own words, a toxic wasteland. Walmart, Target, McDonald's, Meta, Ford, Amazon, Goldman
Which company is this Target? I have no idea.
Sachs, IBM, Citigroup, Harley-Davidson.
Yeah, I still don't know which one is this shoe. Harley-Davidson, I know it's the one that sells like motorcycles. I'm supposing by the name, like it's the name of a motorcycle, so I think it is.
You name it, within roughly 12 months, every major American corporation eliminated its DEI programs, dissolved its diversity teams, or quietly rebranded the function under different language
know what
while hoping
Target
nobody
is,
looked
what it
too
does.
closely.
So right now, some major companies are pushing back against anti-diversity, equity,
don't have
and
it here.
inclusion policy.
In fact, many of those that we just saw there doesn't exist in my country. Most of them, actually.
They basically say that masculinity is bad.
The retreat is political, legal, economic, and cultural all at once.
Walmart's
Because DEI
Budweiser?
did not
Oh, I
fail
see.
in one way, it failed in several. The original intention was real, and the money spent was real. So was the backlash. And the gap between what DEI
and
was
how it
supposed to
was.
be and what
How
it became
real
in
was that
practice
money?
is what made the whole structure so brittle that one presidential election and a handful of legal rulings knocked the most of it over in just under a year. So this is the complete story, where DEI came from, what it turned into, whether the programs actually worked, and what happens now that the whole apparatus is coming apart.
Wait. This is going to talk about what progress actually worked? Only if it worked to that side, because factually none progress actually worked shit for better and for the improvements of society at all.
The story of DEI starts not in a corporate boardroom, but in 1866, right after the Civil War ended. Congress created the Freedmen's Bureau to give formerly enslaved people access to food, jobs, education, and land. By any reasonable definition, it was the first federal affirmative action program in American history.
How DEI begins the terror.
President Andrew Johnson vetoed the legislation that would have given it real enforcement power. His argument was that the program discriminated against white people, and the claim that the government equity programs unfairly burdened white Americans was not invented by talk radio hosts in the 2020s. It was actually Andrew Johnson who made it in 1866. Jim Crow laws then spent the next 70 years building a legal architecture of second-class citizens for Black Americans. The post-World War II economic boom that created the American middle class specifically excluded Black veterans from the GI Bill benefits, Federal Housing Administration loans, and union wage structures that allowed white working families to buy homes and accumulate wealth. Those exclusions were not random or incidental. Congress and federal agencies designed them deliberately. Federal housing policy redlined Black neighborhoods out of mortgage eligibility. Federal architectural programs paid Black farmers less and denied them loans at rates far higher than white farmers received.
Yes.
So these were not cultural attitudes. They were codified federal policies. Then President Kennedy signed Executive Order 10925 in 1961, inserting the phrase affirmative action into federal vocabulary for the first time.
Citizens of the country which they're sent to, doing the same work, eating the same food, speaking the same language. We're going to put particular emphasis on those men and women who have skills in teaching, agriculture, and in health.
The order required federal contractors to treat employees without regard to race, creed, color, or national origin. President Johnson's Civil Rights Act of 1964 made workplace discrimination illegal under Title VII. His Executive Order 11246 in 1965 required federal contractors to take active steps toward equal employment opportunity. In 1971, the Supreme Court's Griggs v. Duke power rule added the disparate impact doctrine, holding that even race-neutral policies could constitute illegal discrimination if they produced racially imbalanced outcomes. An employer did not need to intend discrimination. If the system produced discriminatory results, the law still applied. Xerox employees created the first corporate employee resource group in 1965, organized by Black workers responding to pay disparities. For about 3 decades after that, the broader equal opportunity framework operated largely in the background of corporate life. Companies maintained compliance programs, filed required paperwork, and stayed out of federal enforcement trouble. The efforts were real and often useful, but they were not trying to reshape anyone's ideology. They were trying to fix specific, documented legal problems. The phrase diversity, equality, and inclusion as a unified 3-word corporate framework started gaining real traction in the 1990s and picked up speed through the 2000s. By 2015, DEI had become standard HR vocabulary at most large corporations. McKinsey published influential reports in 2015 and 2018 claiming that companies with more demographic diversity were 35% were more likely to outperform financially. That figure spread through every corporate boardroom in America and became the
Yeah, of course, because billionaires would immediately throw over you like tons of money just because, yes.
Central business case for DEI spending. The research measured correlation, not causation. McKinsey never claimed otherwise, but corporate communications quickly turned a correlation finding into a casual argument, and the argument stuck. A 2024 review published in the Econ Journal Watch found no reliable causal link between the diversity metrics McKinsey measured and financial performance. But by that point, American companies had already built an $8 billion per year industry on the premise. May 25th, 2020 changed the scale of everything. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles,
okay, definitely Caleb, yes.
You should hear this. Recently, a jury ordered
Morgan. Okay, I will drop this.
Forms, but under forms entitled Police officer Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 45
St. Floyd mentioned
seconds. Regardless of any debate of what happened or why, in the end, Floyd died. And a bystander filmed the entire thing, and that footage ended up reaching every phone in America within hours. The protests that followed were the largest the country had seen since the 1960s.
That's an insane number of tired
Corporate
people
America
together.
responded at a speed and scale that had no historical precedent. Within 1 year of Floyd's death, America's top 50 companies pledged nearly $50 billion towards racial equality. Walmart committed $100 million to a new center for racial equity. DEI job postings increased 123% between May and September 2020. Companies tripled their hiring of chief diversity officers. McDonald's declared Floyd one of us in a national commercial and pledged 35% representation of underrepresented groups in leadership by 2025. Bank of America committed $1 billion to racial equality. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and virtually every other major firm issued statements, hired consultants, and stood up new internal departments. USC professor Sean Harper, himself a DEI advocate, later described much of this by saying companies moved not because they were genuinely committed, but because they were afraid. Afraid of social media, afraid of boycotts, afraid of being associated with the wrong side of a national reckoning. Programs built on institutional fear rather than institutional conviction are inherently fragile, and their fragility became apparent the moment any serious counter-pressure arrived. The global DEI market totaled $7.5 billion in 2020 alone. American firms spent approximately $8 billion annually on a consulting and training industry that had grown from corporate compliance into a full professional ecosystem. Chief diversity officers, DEI software platforms, equity audits, unconscious bias workshops, and mandatory training programs sold on annual renewal contracts. The Biden administration channeled over $1.1 trillion in federal program budgets through DEI-related frameworks across 460 identified programs, including $269 million to the Pentagon and $16 million in a single year for third-party diversity training inside federal agencies. What DEI felt like inside American workplaces between 2020 and 2024 was an experience that generated the backlash that eventually dismantled the whole structure.
Mas sendo nosso país, isso é esperado, né?
Companies rushed to implement mandatory unconscious bias training, anti-racism workshops, and sessions built around frameworks developed by authors Ibram X. Kendi and consultant Robin DiAngelo. DiAngelo's framework of white fragility held that white discomfort or resistance during racial discussions was itself a form of racism, a construct that made it logically impossible for a white employee to disagree during a training session without proving the trainer's point. An employee who said, "I'm not sure I agree with this," in a DEI session risked being labeled as a racist for saying it. The structure of the framework removed the possibility of a good faith disagreement. In early 2021, a training session at Coca-Cola reportedly instructed employees to try to be less white, which the training materials defined as being less arrogant, less oppressive, and less defensive. Screenshots of the slides spread everywhere.
To be less white is to be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less certain, be less defensive, be less ignorant, be more humble, less that believe, break with apathy, break with white solidarity. Oh my God.
Coca-Cola distanced itself from the framing, but the phrase entered permanent cultural circulation as shorthand for exactly what critics of DEI meant when they argued the framework had moved from addressing discrimination to indicting an entire racial group. In 2017, Google software engineer James Damore circulated an internal memo arguing that biological differences and interests, alongside discrimination, contributed to the gender gap in tech. Google fired him within days.
I guess, guys, I'm getting more and more honky pills. Like, I just laugh at all bullshit. I'm becoming more and more like that, you know? I just laugh and say a lot of things. Like, I just make fun of them, and I just make fun of them because it's. I mean, everything else is pointless. It doesn't matter how much truth is spit on their faces. You can smash the truth in their face. It doesn't make any difference at all. So I just point and laugh and make fun of them, like I made with those VTuber Twitter freaks today on posts there. You know, it's just what I do now. It's way more funnier to me, and And I don't need to prove anything to them to just like win the arguments, because they can even bring a valid argument to put against me at all. Like, I don't need to do anything. They lose automatically almost. Like 90% of the time.
Accuracy of his biological claims was debated by scientists, but the speed and totality of his termination sent a message that most employees absorbed clearly, that expressing skepticism of DEI frameworks in a corporate setting carried serious career risks. The Society for Human Resource Management documented what it called disversity, the pattern of organizations seeking diversity of appearance while demanding complete ideological conformity from employees. Research found that 1 in 5 employees reported being excluded or pushed out of their organizations because their beliefs diverged from DEI orthodoxy. HR departments, for a significant portion of the workforce, transformed into political enforcement mechanisms rather than neutral arbiters of workplace disputes. The case of Dr. Yoel Inbar became symbolic of a broader problem in academia. Inbar was a well-regarded psychology professor at the University of Toronto, on track to join UCLA's psychology department until 66 students petitioned against his hire. His offense was that he had questioned on a podcast whether DEI statements had measurable value. He didn't oppose DEI, he just raised empirical questions about its efficacy. UCLA declined to extend an offer. A respected academic lost a faculty position for expressing measured, evidence-based skepticism about a policy in public conversation. Universities had begun requiring DEI statements from all faculty job applicants as a condition of academic employment. Critics from across the political spectrum
or CVs that they throw away on the first trash can that they find around yes. With all those fake jobs, and yeah. So lovely.
Them to loyalty oaths. At many institutions, diversity offices evaluated these statements before academic departments reviewed the candidate's research record, meaning ideological conformity served as a filter applied before scholarly merit entered the process. Multiple law reviews argued the practice violated both Title VII and foundational principles of academic freedom. Faculty who declined to write sufficiently enthusiastic statements were regularly screened out before their work reviewed any substantive consideration. Pew Research Center's 2024 survey measured the results of all of this. 52% of U.S. workers said focusing on DEI at work was mainly a good thing, down from 56% the year before. 21% called it mainly a bad thing, up from 16%. A majority of workers believe DEI practices helped Black women, Black men, Hispanic women, and Asian women. Only 14% believed DEI practices helped white men. 36% of workers said DEI practices hurt white men, making white men the only group in the survey where hurts significantly outweighed helps. Among white adults specifically, 47% said DEI hurt white men. A separate Forbes survey found that nearly 70% of white men reported feeling forgotten when it came to their company's DEI strategy. The zero-sum arithmetic drove much of this. When companies announced hiring goals explicitly tied to race and gender, workers did the math themselves. A goal of increasing minority representation in leadership position means, by definition, reducing the representation of everyone else. For white men who were already skeptical that corporate culture valued them, see an explicit group-based hiring targets published in corporate communications read as confirmation.
You can
the perception was
stop
not
by
always
later. I will probably stream throughout the entire day up until midnight or so, as always. So feel free to come back when you are free. Okay? I hope you can do that. I mean, if you can, of course. If you want as well. Yeah. Have a nice day.
Accurate in its specifics, but it was widespread, and widespread perceptions produced real behavioral consequences. Male labor force participation in the United States fell from 86.6% in 1948 to 68% in 2024. Approximately 6.8 million prime-age working men currently
YouTube pseudo-brains in place. Stop hurting each other's feelings, okay? And don't hurt each other's feelings, okay? Don't. This is a safe space. Obviously, I'm being ironic, okay? Yeah.
They sit outside the workforce entirely. Many of those men connected their displacement to a broader cultural shift they experienced as devaluing their contributions and actively deprioritizing their advancement, regardless of how much that connection was structurally accurate. Economic insecurity combined with cultural messaging that centered their demographic group as the source of societal problems produced predictable outcomes. The DEI Mayor episode illustrated how toxic the dynamic had become in life. After After the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed in Baltimore in 2024, critics on social media immediately labeled Baltimore's black mayor, Brandon Scott, the DEI mayor, implying incompetence attributable to diversity hiring rather than to his actual qualifications. Scott had a legitimate political career, so the insult landed the way it did because it piggybacked on documented cases where employers had publicly lowered qualification standards in the name of representation and announced those decisions openly, feeding a stereotype that critics were able to weaponize against anyone who held office while black. When Boeing and United Airlines publicized
just here to spread the love and support for all the real artists and riggers in the VTuber space, because without them, it would never even exist. AI. Oh, okay. Hear me out. Okay, I heard you out. Now you get out, yeah.
Explicit pilot diversity goals, critics attached those announcements to safety incidents in ways the evidence did not support, but corporate communications teams had written those.
Just because your nickname, I give you your 5 minutes of fame or so, okay? Bye-bye.
Critics the material they needed by publishing numerical targets in the first place. What is clear at the end of all this is that the only numerical targets a company's goals should be focused on is the money, and that's the same when it comes to your life. And the best way people are actually making sure those numerical goals are being hit is by using the Dollarwise budgeting app. The budgeting app that tens of thousands of monthly active users choose and change their lives by using. It has incredible insights, automatic account connections,
He's full of ads.
and is so the Dollarwise. Whether DEI programs actually worked is the question advocates consistently avoided. And the peer-reviewed answer is mostly no. In several measurable ways, the programs actually made things worse. Harvard Business Review published a landmark 2016 analysis reviewing decades of corporate diversity efforts. Researchers found that positive effects of diversity training rarely lasted beyond a day or two, and that multiple studies showed mandatory training could activate bias or spark backlash rather than reduce either. And this psychological mechanism is well documented. Mandatory training that forces employees to actively confront racial stereotypes can reinforce those stereotypes rather than diminish them. Telling someone not to think about a pink elephant reliably produces the opposite. Lisa Legault at the University of Toronto found in laboratory experiments that race-focused DEI campaigns applying strong social pressure on people to be non-prejudiced produced heightened levels of bigotry in subjects who felt coerced. Mandatory virtue reliably produced the opposite of the virtue. A large field experiment published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, the PNA.
Oh, the guy is using a uniform, a scientist uniform. So obviously, his opinion about things, about everything now matters more.
Yes, studied 3,016 participants at a global organization. Short online diversity training produced some attitude change, but limited behavior change was explicitly described as not a panacea for remedying bias in the workplace. A meta-analysis covering decades of studies found effect sizes near zero in rigorous peer-reviewed research, and crucially, as study quality improved with larger examples and randomized designs, the apparent effect of DEI training decreased further. The more careful the measurement, the smaller the result. 2/3 of human resource specialists, the professionals actually designing and running these programs, reported that diversity training produced no positive effects. Boston University's 2023 systematic review found that the vast majority of existing studies suffered from significant methodological problems, with small group sizes, no control groups, predominantly female participants, and almost no follow-up studies measuring whether effects lasted beyond the immediate training period. Researchers at BU concluded that the field cannot definitively demonstrate that most DEI workplace programs produced lasting positive outcomes. DEI advocates regularly pointed to pre- and post-
You need a research for that. You just need a little bit of common sense.
Surveys.
I mean, the very good and old common sense, not this thing that we have nowadays.
Showing that participants responded with more supportive answers after training. Measuring whether employees can repeat what they're just being told in an environment where their career advancement depends on giving approved answers produces self-reported data that tells you nothing reliable about actual attitudinal change. The survey.
So basically, all these fucking demons that enforced all this stuff with their tons of money to want to destroy us, to destroy our world, our reality, to destroy everything. Now they just decided, basically say it through research by saying like, oh, but now that we have this research here to back us up, now we realized how bad the AI was actually being like. You know, we didn't do nothing, guys. We didn't do nothing. It wasn't our fault at all. We didn't know how the evil that we are plotting, that we are doing to society. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Surveys measured compliance performance, not genuine belief. The University of Michigan case stands as a comprehensive case study in what $250 million of DEI spending accomplished at a major research institution. U of M required every department to adopt DEI implementation plans. Administrators created an entire class of enforcement positions dedicated to DEI doctrine across campus. The New York Times investigation found that none of this meaningfully increased minority enrollment or improved minority students' sense of belonging on campus. Researchers found instead a campus where administrators, faculty, and students had been set against each other in sustained racial conflict that deepened divisions and undermined academic freedom. U of M spent $250 million making the problem measurably worse. Academic standards produced a parallel crisis. Physics professor Alex Small at Cal Poly Pomona documented students arriving in college calculus unable to complete high school algebra because K-12 schools push students through coursework with generous grades rather than requiring genuine mastery. Multiple STEM faculty at major research universities reported the same pattern. While equity gets defined as equal outcomes rather than equal opportunity, the institutional response to persistent achievement gaps becomes lowering standards rather than raising preparation. The result is graduates holding credentials that do not represent the competencies those credentials are supposed to certify, which ultimately harms the students those policies claim to help because employers discount the degrees and the graduates bear the professional consequences. In March 2023, Bud Light's marketing team struck a sponsorship deal with transgender influencer.
Oh my god, no one will ever forget that, guys. No one will leave Budweiser fucking alone. Oh, they fucking destroyed themselves so much with that. Damn, that even me, that I don't drink, and God, we don't even have Budweiser here to begin with. And I don't even drink beer. And I know what happened. Like, what the fuck?
Sir Dylan Mulvaney to celebrate her 365 Days of Girlhood TikTok series. The deal was a single personalized promotional video, but the consumer response became the largest boycott in American beer history.
Anheuser-Busch lost more than $1 billion in sales because of the Bud Light boycott.
Sales fell 11% the week ending April 8th. They fell 21% the week ending April 15th. Off-premise sales dropped 26% by May 1st and 29.5% by the week ending May 20th. Anheuser-Busch InBev recorded a $395 million North American revenue loss in the second quarter of 2023 alone. The 4-year estimated North American revenue loss reached $1.4 billion. Modelo Especial surpassed Bud Light as America's #1 beer, ending a position Bud Light had held for over 2 decades. Local distributors reported sales dropping 50%
it was Bud Light. Yes,
the company offered $15 rebates and slashed prices, and neither move recovered the brand standing. The corporate response compounded the damage. Anheuser-Busch issued a meandering apology and placed 2 marketing executives on leave. LGBTQ advocates attacked the company for abandoning Mulvaney. Conservatives found the apology insufficient. Moderate customers switched to Modelo Especial and largely stayed there. The CEO's public comment that people basically want to enjoy their beer without the debate functioned as an unintentional but accurate summary of why aggressive corporate DEI alienated the customers who mattered the most to the bottom line. Target ran its own version of the same disaster in 2023 with expanded Pride Month merchandise that included items marketed to children and products from a designer whose aesthetic imagery drew immediate controversy. Target moved some merchandise away from store entrances under conservative pressure, which infuriated progressive advocacy groups who demanded Target restore everything and publicly denounce extremists. Target alienated both sides at the same time. Sales fell, stock declined, and by late 2024, the company's stock sat roughly 12% lower, with the DEI controversy among the documented contributing factors. Conservative activist Robbie Starbuck spent 2024 systematically targeting major brands popular with conservative customers, documented their DEI policies in detailed social media threads, and threatening or executing consumer boycott campaigns. Tractor Supply Company eliminated its DEI roles and stopped Pride event sponsorships. John Deere curtailed programs. Harley-Davidson eliminated its DEI function entirely. Brown-Forman, the maker of Jack Daniels, scaled back. Ford reduced initiatives.
What actually happened is that people started to realize that all people that defended that shit was actually retarded people. And that they were only defending their own interests behind this DEI stuff. That was actually money. So people started to notice that, and then people that actually never agreed with, but they were just silent because obviously they were the minority. Everyone was in favor of all this shit. And then they, little by little, slowly they started to voice out their opinions about DEI. And increasingly in the upcoming years, until we reach the point that we are in, where everyone is fatigued and no one tolerates more DEI in literally everything. Like, yeah, but it's basically that.
Lowe's exited the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. Molson Coors
I agree
back.
with you. Still Apple Friday. I didn't see
Walmart, the largest private
eliminated
employer in the United States, renamed its DEI function Belonging, ending supplier diversity spending goals, and closing the Racial Equality Center it had opened with $100 million 4 years earlier. Harper, the USC professor, said something about Starbucks' campaign that cut directly into what had always been wrong with the institutional structure. If one person can take to Twitter and ultimately inflame a campaign to dismantle DEI in large companies, it means those things were not strong to begin with. Most companies and the people
don't tell me. They didn't knew that? Oh, really? Okay.
who led them were not committed to this. Starbucks did not dismantle genuinely held convictions. He revealed that most corporate DEI programs had been built on performance rather than conviction and collapsed the moment anyone applied real pressure. Again, the main focus of any business is to make money. So every business should do the clear thing instead of being performative.
Money,
and you can do that right now instead of being performative. Literally sign up for a Chime checking account at chime.com/Caleb and get $200 for free. It is free. Why do that? Well, that's a good question.
Why do that? Why do jump ads? Because there are freaking too much of them on Caleb's video.
Or link. As the consumer boycotts were reshaping corporate behavior, the legal system was simultaneously producing changes that would outlast any single election cycle. On June 29, 2023, the United States Supreme Court ruled,
"Oh, I'm powerful and my opinion matters the most because guess what? I'm a judge and I have a hammer." Yes.
6-2 in Students for Fair Administrations versus Harvard, combined with its
what I say actually becomes true because I'm a judge. It's how the word, it's the state that the word is in right now. You know, it sounds really childish and stupid, but it's exactly what's happening in my country, but we don't talk about that.
Companion case against the University of North Carolina. The court held that Harvard's and UNC's race-conscious admissions programs violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion. The ruling overturned 45 years of precedent established by the regents of the University of.
You guys better watch out over your judges. Trust me when I say that you don't want to be ruled by your judges instead of your laws or your parliament or your president or whatever it is. Trust me on
California versus Bakke in 1978 and by Grutter versus Bollinger in 2023. Edward Bloom brought the case through his organization Students for Fair Admissions, originally challenging Harvard's treatment of Asian American applicants. That framing changed the political geometry of the fight. The case was no longer framed as white Americans versus minority groups. Asian Americans, a minority group that had faced documented discrimination through American history, were demonstrably penalized by Harvard's system, which capped their representation to benefit other minority groups. The constitutional argument became far cleaner, and dismissing the lawsuit as simple racial resentment became far harder.
The one that
corporate legal teams began reviewing hiring programs, supplier diversity initiatives, and mentoring programs that reserved slots by demographic group within days of the ruling. reverse discrimination lawsuits multiplied. The Novant Health case produced a verdict exceeding $10 million on a reverse discrimination claim. The Supreme Court's 2025 ruling, Ames v. Ohio, lowered the legal bar for majority group plaintiffs pursuing discrimination claims, making it easier for white or male employees to sue over DEI hiring decisions they believed had cost them positions. President Trump signed 3 executive orders in his first 2 days back in office that constituted the most sweeping federal action against DEI programs in American history. Executive Order 14151, signed January 20th, 2025, required the termination of all DEI offices, programs, and training across every federal agency. Agencies had until January 22nd to shut the offices down and until January 31st to lay off the staff. All DEIA-related government websites and social media accounts were ordered taken offline. Executive Order 14173, signed the following day, revoked Executive Order 11246, the Lyndon Johnson mandate that required federal contractors to take affirmative action for 60 years. The order directed the Attorney General to identify private sector companies with egregious and discriminatory DEI programs and develop enforcement plans, and required federal contractors to certify that they were not running programs that violated anti-discrimination law. The enforcement
With that said, give Fox some money. Fox need to go out country. Fox is spending a lot of money. Fox needs money. Give Fox some money.
plan named major corporations.
I wouldn't be asking if I didn't need it. So yeah, I will not ask that again. Yeah, give Fox some money. Now,
Financial institutions, airlines, law enforcement agencies, medical institutions, and universities as specific targets. In February 2026, EEOC Chair Andrea Lucas sent a warning
I already spent, by the way. I'm just trying to recover it. I spent a lot already.
letters directly to Fortune 500 CEOs, board chairs, and general counsel. These personal letters named executives and threatened potential litigation from the federal government against diversity programs those companies had created, partially to satisfy federal expectations from a previous administration. The corporate retreat accelerated.
What is
20% of
Findom?
companies eliminated their DEI
Fake
programs
pseudo
entirely
brains,
following
yes.
Trump's
Do
re-election.
like the pseudo
Fortune
brains,
100
yes.
companies
Pseudo brains,
reduced
yes.
DEI references
Thank
in
you very
official
much for giving
communications
this
by 98%. The S&P 500 share of companies disclosing women in management data fell from 71.2% to 55.1%. More than 2,600 DEI job titles were
Financial
cut. The Human
domination
Rights
peak,
Campaign's
what?
Corporate Equality Index
What
dropped
the-
from
what's that
377
supposed to mean?
Fortune 500 participants to 131, a 65% collapse in 1 year. And state governments had already moved. Florida and Texas led a wave of legislation prohibiting DEI offices at public universities and barring diversity statements in hiring decisions. By late 2024, Florida, Texas,
aim yes, or go to a country where C and aim isn't at risk. Actually, for me to be able to talk about my own country, I mean, without risk, I actually should go to a country that wouldn't deport me in case of my country asking for that, you know? And there are not many countries that actually would refuse that out there. I think the only one that I know is United States, but I can't live there. So yeah. So even I'm moving out, I will still need to keep my mouth shut, if you know what I mean. Yeah. To avoid being deported.
Utah, Alabama, Iowa, Idaho, Kansas, and Indiana each had passed
Yeah, I think it's tradition. It's not the point that it's tradition, right? Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
similar legislation. The University of Florida eliminated its entire DEI staff. The Iowa episode captured what the rebranding game had produced. After Iowa passed its DEI ban, Governor Kim Reynolds referred the University of
I would just move out and forget that my country exists. Yeah. I mean, talking about it.
Iowa to its attorney general after video surfaced of a university administrator explaining on camera how staff were deliberately hiding DEI activities under different names to avoid state law enforcement. The College of Pharmacy at the University of Florida rebranded DEI as accessibility, belonging, and community. Law schools renamed Dean for Inclusion positions as Dean for Experimental Learning and Engagement. Administrators caught on video describing how they concealed programs from their own elected government had stripped stripped the entire enterprise of whatever remaining credibility it had. The anti-DEI movement, for all its victories, was at the same time also ignoring evidence that did matter. Audit studies using identical resumes with different names, one white-sounding and one black-sounding, have consistently shown that black-sounding names receive meaningfully fewer callbacks, with all other qualifications held constant. But is the answer to prioritize black people over white people? No. Most normal people would say, don't include names on resumes and make it based on qualifications only. A 2023 analysis of 97 US employers found measurable racial gaps in hiring contact rates. The problem DEI was designed to address didn't disappear during the years DEI programs were being dismantled. Federal merit-based hiring frameworks do not account for 3 decades of audit evidence showing that actual human hiring decisions are not made on merit alone. In specific contexts, demographic representation produces measurable improvements that go beyond symbolism. Police departments serving minority communities, medical providers treating minority patients, and teachers in majority minority schools all show better outcomes when practitioners share some background with the communities they serve. The mechanism is not representation for its own sake. It is trust, communication, and institutional credibility with populations that
who would guess that, right, guys? Who would imagine that? Wow. Well, we need the researchers to understand that. Oh, my God.
have historical reasons not to
Ko-Fi alerts are disabled? Wait. Oh, Ko-Fi is having a problem with demands with traffic. So it probably, it's just a glitch, probably. And, yeah. I mean, wait a second. I'll try to update the alert here. I don't know if it's gonna work though. What the fuck? Wait, what? I am getting confused. Ko-Fi notifications? Wait, what's not working? Yeah. Yeah, I updated them, but I'll enter on the so problematic. I was trying to log in on Ko-Fi website and not even that I was being able to earlier. Oh, thank you. Oh, wait, what? Demo 21 of July? Oh my god. Oh my god. And not only you trucked, but I just have one thing to say. Absolute cinema. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Nianus, for the raid. Thank you guys for the raid. Thank you, Nianus. Thank you very much. We are reacting to Was the AI a Failure from Front Page channel, which is Caleb Hammer documentary channel. Welcome everyone. We will just continue in a second. So yeah, I was talking about like people have not only you trucks, by the way. Thank you very much for $50. Thank you very much, trucks, for the $50 on the Ko-Fi. The notification didn't appear. I don't know why. And I noticed that other people donated to me before, like on day 21, like Guardian sent me $100. Thank you very much. I don't know if you will watch If you're watching, I wasn't notified of this too. Damn. I'm not being notified at all. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. You too. Thank you very much.
Extended automatically. Patricia Devine at the University of Wisconsin-Madison spent 15 years developing an evidence-based bias habit-breaking training program that produced documented effectiveness across rigorous experimental trials. Her approach is voluntary in design, focused on specific behavioral habits rather than political ideology, and structured around psychology that reflects how attitudinal change actually works. Coercive, shame-based, one-time mandatory training reliably fails to change behavior and often increases resentment. Targeted, voluntary, evidence-based behavioral intervention can produce voluntary change. Corporate DEI programs scale the version that fails and call the expansion of that version progress. Deloitte research found that organizations with genuinely inclusive cultures, meaning culture
I really can't take this because look at this. They did all these researches that took like, I don't know, years. Each one of these, like, in a lot of companies and etc. to literally know what common sense, like, literally tell us by design, like, alone without any studies at all. Of course, like, having research like this always help to base our decisions and to know exactly which path actually led us to the situation that we are in right now nowadays. But I mean, like, your common sense alone can tell pretty much everything that he said here happened to this very moment. It's incredible.
Where people of different backgrounds feel actually.
Oh, study says, oh, researchers tell that blah blah blah, and like specialists think that this is better, and like oh damn, or they are intentionally like made to their own future interests with very fake and gay results, or they are true and just tell you what literally common sense has been telling us for like always.
Actually welcomed and heard rather than administratively categorized are twice as likely to exceed financial targets, 3 times as likely to be high performing, and 6 times more likely to generate meaningful innovation. The thing corporate DEI apparatus rarely produced was a genuinely inclusive culture. It produced compliance infrastructure, the bureaucratic appearance of inclusion, while frequently generating the opposite, because mandatory performance of inclusion produces surface compliance and quiet resentment rather than genuine belonging. Generational attitudes confounded every simple narrative of the DEI debate produced. A global Ipsos survey of 31 countries released in 2025 found that 60% of Gen Z men believed that women's equality initiatives discriminated against men, a 20% gap with Gen Z women at 40%. Gen Z respondents at 57% and millennials at 60% were more likely than baby boomers at 43% to say things had gone far enough on gender equality. More than half of Gen Z and millennials believed men were being asked to do too much in support of equality goals. The finding that most complicated the standard generational narrative was that Gen Z men were more likely than baby boomer men to say that a stay-at-home father is less of a man, 25% versus 11%. The generation raised with the most progressive cultural messaging around gender held more conservative views about male gender roles than the generation that preceded it. Younger men absorbed the message that their traditional roles were being devalued and simultaneously concluded that the new equality frameworks came at their direct expense, and responded not with progressive alignment but with a conservative backlash specific to their generation. Jordan Peterson, a University of Toronto psychology professor, built a global audience of young men arguing that postmodern ideology was colonizing universities and institutional messaging required men to feel ashamed of their nature. Joe Rogan gave anti-DEI arguments 3-hour unedited conversations reaching millions of listeners that traditional media gatekeepers would never have platformed. Andrew Tate, considerably more extreme in his methods, found an audience among.
Oh, I read that Jordan Peterson book. I read once, like 12 Rules for Life, I guess. It has some years already. My brother have that book, so I mean, I forgot that I read that one. So I didn't have anything to do at all one day, and I just read their entire book in one day. Yeah.
among men who felt the mainstream cultural message designated them as the problem. Now, the accuracy of these figure-specific arguments vary significantly, but their audiences grew because those arguments matched feelings that men held from their own experiences in schools, workplaces, and corporate training sessions. Deloitte's 14th annual survey.
It's like I say, I don't read books at all. I told you guys, I read like very few in my entire life. But at that time, like the few times I usually pick a book, I eat the book. Like I reading as fast as I can. I literally devour the book.
Survey of more than 23,000 Gen Z and millennial workers globally found that these generations still expect companies to take genuine positions on fairness and inclusion. They want substantive commitment to those values. They are simultaneously and increasingly allergic to the bureaucratic performance of those values. Younger workers can tell the difference between a company that actually treats its people fairly and a company that runs mandatory annual training and considers its obligations discharged. The Chief Diversity Officer role became the most visible institutional symbol of the DEI apparatus's structural problem. Companies hired CDOs at unprecedented.
Did you guys don't have that expression in English? Here, when we want to say that we did something incredibly fast, we say that we eat that stuff, you know? It works for a few things, not everything, but books, for example. So I ate this book. So it means that I read this so freaking fast, you know, like as fast as I could. Like, yeah.
Rates after the Floyd protests. At least 60 public companies appointed their first ever diversity leader in 2020. DEI roles increased 55% in that single year, and compensation packages at major corporations routinely exceeded $500,000 annually. Russell Reynolds, the executive search firm, found that 60% of CDOs at S&P 500 companies left their positions between 2018 and 2021. Average CDO tenure fell from 3.1 years to 1.8 years by 2021. Compared to CEO average tenure of 5 years. Visor, another search firm, found that companies hired CDOs with great fanfare and then gave them inadequate resources, no real organizational authority, no clear metrics for success, and the impossible dual mandate of achieving demographic transformation while also managing the psychological fallout from the training programs those same CDOs were running. Companies set the role up to fail, and then they were surprised when it did fail. The tech industry's 2022 and 2023 layoff wave hit DEI departments disproportionately. By the time executive orders arrived, companies had already hollowed out much of the DEI infrastructure. The industry had built itself on the assumption that companies were genuinely committed. Most were not, and the first serious reversal of pressure proved it. Several patterns will define what comes next.
Yeah, that's true. Like many companies were just like putting the DEI there, and it's like for everything else, they don't give a shit. They're just putting there because people are throwing a lot of money, like billionaires and, you know, etc., throwing tons of money on them to do so. They just care about the money. They don't give a shit about the DEI stuff. Yeah. It's valid for the other side as well. Like even when they reach to sign on to the common sense side of things, which is very rare. It's also like for the money, like companies literally have no soul at all. Yeah, it's all about money. And I mean, it's not wrong, but I mean, it's difficult. It's not wrong, okay? They are thinking about their business. They want to gain money, okay? But they destroy the country where their very companies are built in. So, you know, like they will reach a point like my country is reaching where they are literally having to close because they are not having net income anymore. Like they're just having like debts. So they are having to close their companies here and move out or just close because they are broke. Yeah.
Corporate language will continue changing while
and they were the responsibles for this here too, like because they push all this bullshit forward here as well. And now they are like reaping as well. So yeah.
Some underlying programs quietly persist. The 98% drop in DEI terminology in Fortune 100 communications does not mean companies have abandoned concern for workplace demographics. Belonging, equitable access, and talent development are replaced.
And of course, obviously, they don't reap as much as us because they know when things are starting to go terrible to them at the moment that they start not like that thing stopped being like lucrative to them. They immediately close the company and move out of the company, move out of the country, and move to the next country they're gonna destroy next when billionaires throw thousands of money, like billions, millions of money on them to push the same bullshit there as well.
Placing the DEI acronym in official communications. Gravity Research.
There are like I think in English it's crickets, right? There are like crickets, like devouring every farm and going to the next one.
Found companies are relying on neutral framing to maintain internal priorities while navigating federal scrutiny. Some of this rebranding reflects genuine evolution toward less corrosive, more evidence-based approaches. Some of it is the same programs running under different names. The Iowa case represents the second category. The administrators who were caught on camera are not alone. Legal risk will reshape corporate practices more durably than any executive order. With EEOC Chair Andrea Lucas actively threatening Fortune 500 companies, corporate HR teams are systematically removing any program that could be characterized as a race or gender preference, while restructuring mentoring, leadership development, and employer resource groups to be legally universal rather than demographic group specific. Those structural changes will outlast the administration that created the pressure. State and federal law will diverge in ways that create years of complex compliance problems. California, New York, and Illinois are each strengthening anti-discrimination enforcement frameworks simultaneously as the federal government retreats from DEI. Companies operating nationally face contradicting requirements subject to what California law requires and what federal executive orders now prohibit, and the litigation generated by that contradiction will run for years regardless of which party controls the White House. AI hiring tools are emerging as a potential path past the cultural war entirely. Companies deploying algorithm audits and fairness reviews of AI hiring systems can argue for legally defensible, mathematically documented approaches to reducing discriminatory outcomes without mandatory training programs, diversity goals, or ideological commitments. If the target shifts from changing human attitudes through workshops to auditing and correcting algorithmic bias through engineering, the entire architecture of DEI changes, and most of the cultural conflict that defined DEI between 2020 and 2025 becomes structurally unnecessary. The Rasmussen poll released in 2025 found that 43% of Americans viewed DEI as an excuse for discrimination. Only 33% said DEI improved companies, and 34% said it made companies worse. Among respondents who were very familiar with DEI programs, 51% said outcomes had deteriorated under them. The people with the most direct experience were most likely to conclude the programs had failed. The AP NORC poll from July 2025 found that only 1/3 of Americans believed DEI initiatives had reduced discrimination against women, Hispanic people, or Asian Americans. Roughly 4 in 10 believed DEI had helped address bias against Black people, DEI's primary stated benefit. Nearly 30% of Americans believed DEI initiatives had increased discrimination, including discrimination against white people. DEI got its founding problem right. Documented, provable discrimination against Black Americans, women, and other groups produced.
This just served for me to tell what you guys already know very well. The masses are stupid, are so freaking retarded. And this is the perfect example of that.
Just real, measurable harm across generations, and that harm created legitimate demand for a policy response. The legal frameworks, Title VII, the Equal Protection Clause, and early affirmative action mandates produced real progress. Specific, targeted, evidence-based interventions produced genuine improvements in specific contexts. The original impulse and the original tools had genuine merit. What followed after 2020 was an overcorrection. The movement shifted from addressing specific documented discriminatory practices to implementing sweeping ideological frameworks applied universally without reference to evidence of effectiveness. It elevated group identity over individual dignity. Corporate HR departments became political enforcement mechanisms. Workplaces became environments where employees calculated their career costs of honest disagreement before opening their mouths in training sessions. Billions of dollars in consulting contracts produced little measurable benefit. DEI advocates alienated moderate white voters, working class voters of all backgrounds, skeptical skeptical academics, and eventually young men across racial lines by using corrosive, shame-based approaches that provoked resistance rather than building the broad coalitions the cause needed. The anti-DEI movement, in turn, correctly diagnosed most of these pathologies while simultaneously conflating the dysfunction of the implementation with the legitimacy of the original problem. Eliminating DEI offices does not eliminate the resume callback gaps that audit studies have documented for 3 decades. Disbanding chief diversity officer positions does not close the lending discrimination gaps that federal data has measured for just as long. Whatever comes after DEI will eventually have to address the conditions that produce DEI, or those conditions will produce.
I totally agree with that. I want that, and I thought about that before. I think I always thought do we ever will address everything that all this failure of the last 1 or 2 decades that have been passed so far or future? We will ever address that? We will ever correct this shit? How the future is gonna be like for the way that things are going? Or I don't know, we will keep only getting worse and worse and worse without ever recovering and calling all of this retarded shit as a mistake, as a huge mistake.
Produce the next generation of demand for remediation.
I think about that.
Andrew Johnson made that mistake in
many
1866, and the country has made some version of it several times since. I'll see you in the next one. I'll be candid. Front page loses money. The cost of research, audio editing, video.
Nah, you're good, Caleb. You're good, but thank you. Thank you for all the ads on the video. Just want to remind you guys to join our Discord server. You can do that by hopping on the link that it's on your screen. You can type that. You know how to type? Yes. You type that on the browser. You press your little pretty button on the keyboard called enter. Yes, and you go to a Linktree website, and there is plenty of links there, including the Linktree. The Discord. But you can just type discord.gg/Kitsune Mizuki, and you go to our Discord server where you'll find an amazing community of Foxlings that do game nights, movie nights, and a lot of more fun stuff. And yeah, you're welcome. Unless you are a libtard, then you'll be kicked out, or a commie, or some bullshit like that. Or those over the fence too. Yes. If you're nothing like that, feel welcome. Feel free to join. I just wanna remind you guys too. At the moment when you join the Discord server, if you have any weird pronouns like he, him, they, then, blah blah blah, she, blah blah blah. If you have pronouns, you will be kicked. You will not even be accepted. Okay? If you have pronouns, you will not be accepted. Okay? Just wanna let you guys know that. Truckit will make sure to reject everyone that has pronouns. Okay? Yeah, I don't give a shit. So, what else? You will find also on the Linktree links to the Patreon, where you can support me as well with memberships and have access to content that I post there, as well as special roles on Discord according to tiers. And what else? We can also support folks on this amazing giant bar that there is below through Ko-Fi. So I can recover the expenses that I pay for move out of my country. So feel free to do that as well. Just avoid any kind of support through WorkTube because they suck out all of the money. Okay? Before we go any further, I want to take this brief moment here to thank all of you, my patrons, for the incredible support to my work here on YouTube, and especially my 5-Tail Fox Tier member, the Holy Ball, and to all of my 3-Tail Fox Tier members, Wallony Wolf, Fanny Sylvie, Heat Himself, Chile Not Serious, Eustace the Useful, Zealous Isaiah, Ala Rosas, Max Tenor, Nugutino, Avery, Halcyonic Eder, and TV8. Thank you very, very much. You guys are amazing. Also, thanks to everyone that have been supporting me on Ko-Fi, Kick, and to all of my YouTube members. You can support this channel life and growth with just $5 a month and gain access to many perks. This is less than a burrito. Check out my Patreon. Link is in the description below. And that's it for today, my dear Foxlings. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.